You will never amount to anything. We shall see, brother.
Alright, let's talk about the Spider-Man that comes from Earth 11580, and their name is Spidersman. So Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker received the invitation to go to Horizon Labs by Max Modal. There they looked at all of the advancements, things of that nature, but they also saw a horde of spiders in a vat. Now, these spiders were gone through the process of genetic modification or experimentation through radioactivity. Now, getting a little bit closer, Peter Parker creeped to just look a little bit more, but an accident ensued where he fell into the horde of spiders. And sad to say, all of those spiders consumed Peter Parker, but what happened next was truly the unexpected and amazing, for lack of better words, where they replicated his consciousness and then took on the form of Peter Parker, or so they believed, and then became Spidersman. Alright, let's talk about Palomino Swan, aka Spider Requiem from Earth 98117. So she's a spider totem, and she was introduced into Spiderverse volume number 3, and she's teamed up with the likes of Miles Morales and also Spider-Zero, which is another character that I'm going to do at a later time. So what are her powers? Her powers are basically everything that the 616 versions have, right? Such as super strength, ability to cling onto walls, she can shoot webs, and also she has spider sense. Now, what deviates her from the other spider people is that she's a puppeteer. As you can see in this really cool image right here, she utilizes her spider abilities to puppeteer and to create trick, and also use it for tactical and defensive resources as well. She's a really cool character, and she was created as a spider persona, right? So it's cool that fan artists were able to bring their characters into the Spider-Verse. Alright, let's talk about Peter Parker from Earth 616, aka Arachnite. I know, you're like, what? Arachnite? Who is that? Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so when he was younger, Ben and May Parker brought Peter to a science expo, and as they were leaving, Peter convinced them to go to Central Park just for a faster route and to explore the city some more. But they were attacked by a character called the Goblin by Night, and this character ended up brutally murdering both Ben and May Parker, but left Peter really hurt badly. But then the unexpected happened, and Peter was bitten by a mystical spider that was linked to all kinds of forms of mystical spiders, and also a spider totem itself, and gave him abilities like none other. Now, he had all the powers of the 616 version, but also Moon Knight abilities as well, right? But also the multiple personalities. These personalities afforded him with many different skills. He's a really cool character. Alright, let's talk about one of my favorite Spider Women from Earth 616, Cindy Moon, aka Silk. So, growing up, her parents realized that she had photographic memory, which is pretty cool, and they pushed her into her studies and to study some more. But all Cindy wanted to do as a teenager was to play hockey and to hang out with her boyfriend. But like many young relationships, they broke up. He went to Boston University and she went to Oxford University. Now, while she was on a trip, she came across this irradiated spider that became irradiated by a particle accelerator. Yes, this is the same spider that bit Peter Parker and also bit her too. She was there, right? And she started to gain these fantastical spider abilities, right? Very similar to Peter Parker, right? Not much of a difference at all. The only difference is that she uses it in a more efficient way and she's a lot faster. Does that make her more powerful? No, but she donned herself silk, which is pretty cool. Alright, let's talk about Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman from Earth 616. So early in her life, her family moved from England to Wendigo Mountain. So there, in Wendigo Mountain, her dad, Jonathan Drew, and also Herbert Wyndham, who would later become the High Evolutionary, pretty crazy, worked on their experiments. But Jessica was exposed to high levels of uranium and received some form of poisoning from this. Now, her dad worked really hard in order to create a formula using experimental spiders and gave it to her. He was desperate, right? He wanted it to work. But Herbert Wyndham, aka the High Evolutionary, wanted to speed up the process so that they could save her. Now, they did, right? But it took a really long time and they put her in some form of stasis. But when she awoke, she later slowly started to show these powers, right? These arachnid-based powers, and also had the ability to bioshock people. Pretty cool. Alright, let's talk about the Spider-Man that comes from Earth 8311, which is the anthropomorphic universe where animals can talk just like me and you. So we have Peter. Peter is a spider that lives in the basement of May Porker. Now, May Porker is a scientist that revolutionized just hair styling, right, through the creation of a hair dryer that is at the highest level of hair dryers. Now, in doing so, there was an accident that ensued, and with this accident she was bombarded with radioactivity and went into a frenzy. During this frenzy, she bit Peter the spider, and this spider transformed through the process of anthropomorphic transformation and became pig-like, but also retained all of the abilities that a spider would have. Now he donned himself the spider hen. Now, he had all the abilities as the 616 version, but also had something called spider nonsense, which is why you see him in this cartoony state in the most death-defying and intense situations. He's a really cool character, and I love this spider ham. Alright, let's talk about the Spider-Man that comes from Earth 90214. Now, Peter Parker was raised by Ben and May Parker, who were activists during the Great Depression. Now, they always taught Peter that good will triumph over evil, but one day, Ben Parker was found mutilated and died at the hands of a New York businessman called the Goblin. Now, this didn't stop Peter from seeking justice, but him and May Parker were attacked, and they were saved by a gentleman called Uric. Now, Peter received a tip-off, or a form of deception, that was actually for Uric, and Peter went to a warehouse. At the warehouse, there was something called a spider idol, a statue of sorts, and it broke, and hordes of spiders came out of it, and one of those spiders bit Peter, and it sent him into a dreamlike state where he dreamed of a spider god. When he awoke, he had powers just like the 616 version, and he donned one of the most amazing suits we have ever seen, and he became Spider-Man. Not just Spider-Man, spidermannoir. Alright, let's talk about Penny Parker from Earth 14512. So tragically, when she was 9 years old, her dad passed away, and her dad worked on a form of technology that allowed some kind of interface with a mech suit, a mech spider suit of sorts, right? And she was told by her uncle and aunt that she was the only one who could possibly continue the legacy and his work. Now, for a little girl, this was a big responsibility, but she was willing to do it, right? She was willing to follow her dad's legacy, and she allowed the other half of the SP/DR suit to bite her. It was a radioactive spider, and this created a direct link between the two. Now, Penny Parker doesn't have any abilities herself, but she has this direct connection to the SP/DR suit, and it can be constantly upgraded, which is pretty cool. It's a mech suit, right? Essentially, at the end of the day. Now, it is comparable to Peter Parker and the 616 version in terms of abilities, but proportionate to a mech suit itself. Alright, let's talk about V from Earth 43980. So V lives in 2177 AD and is a living robot. So V was first introduced in Spider-Verse volume number 3. And in that book, V was recruited by Spider-Man and also Spider-Zero to help rescue Spider-Link. Now, in V's universe, V will utilize her technological abilities in order to tap into the World Wide Web. Get it? Web, spider. So V stops cyber criminals, which is pretty cool, right? Why wouldn't you need a character like that? There's so much going on in the World Wide Web that you need a character who will stop bad guys too. Now, let's look at the aesthetics and the possibilities. While being able to tap in, kind of like Cyborg from DC, we also have a character that just looks damn cool and also has a sword. There isn't too much about this character, but if you know, let me know.